Hey guys, what is up? It's your girl Grace Tori, and I'm back with a whole new podcast episode. Today we're going to be talking about how to make life easier for yourself and for your journey, whatever you might be going through. I'm super excited. I have some fun tips and tricks, some things that I learned from my breakaway. I also have some announcements. I can't talk about it in this episode yet, but I do have some fun meetings coming up, and I will be sharing that soon. Not now, but in an upcoming episode. So if you aren't following already and you want to join a community of women who are working to become the best version of ourselves, definitely follow whatever platform you're on. I'll have my Instagram and TikTok link below. You'll be around for those announcements. You'll be around for all of the fun content we have going on, and we would just love to have you. So definitely do that. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on in. I'm Grace Tori, and you're listening to That Girl the Podcast. Grab a beverage of choice and settle in, because the new episode is starting now. So I made notes that I wouldn't forget anything, but I am super excited for this episode. I feel like there's a lot that I can talk to you guys about, hopefully give you advice on, or you leave this feeling like you have more of a game plan if you are feeling a little bit more discouraged, your life is really hard right now. I do want to say before I jump in, this isn't to say that life is ever going to be hard, because there are going to be hard times. There's going to be ups and downs. Progress isn't linear. But if you do feel like there's more bad times than good, or there's some things where you feel like you can definitely mitigate the amount of hardships or sadness or whatever you want to call it, then definitely keep listening, because I feel like these tips are really applicable and are going to have almost immediate change, or you're going to see an immediate increase in like the ease that you're experiencing, because at the end of the day, life is supposed to feel easy. It's supposed to feel like you're flowing. That's when you know you're doing the right thing. That's when you know you're at the right place. And if you feel like you're just like in tar and you can't move forward and there's constantly something stopping you, then this episode is for you, because it shouldn't feel that way. I know I've been in both places. I know when I feel like I'm in my flow or whatever and doing what I'm meant to be doing, and I know the difference between when you don't, and it's a big difference. So let's just go ahead and get to my bullet points. I'll stop yapping and start giving advice, I guess. So like I said, if you're not having fun, you're not in flow. This is something that you kind of have to learn to pick up on. It's almost like your gut feeling. It's like when things feel like they're going easy to a certain extent, or they feel like they're progressing at like a normal rate, at least, like you feel like you're getting somewhere, then you are probably in flow, versus when you're not, when things feel like they're not doing well, you feel like you can't get anywhere, you feel like what you want doesn't want you, like you're probably not doing what you're meant to be doing. And I know that sounds super like magic-y, like woo-woo, but it's just the truth. Like, it's just like the energy of how the universe works. A lot of mysteries out there, and I 100% believe this is one of them. Kind of to go off of that, there is high and low energy in the universe. Let's keep going on this woo-woo train for a little bit longer. And if you are from a low energy, or if you're vibrating at a low energy, you're constantly feeling like things suck, things are really hard, you're sad, then you're only going to attract a lot low energy, because from a scientific standpoint, we know that low attracts low, like attracts like, high attracts high. So you need to get out of that low vibration, or you're only going to attract more of it. So the first thing you need to do, in my opinion, is take a rest and reevaluate after you've had some time to rest and you kind of get out of that low headspace. Obviously, Rome wasn't built in a day. There have been times where I've just felt completely awful. I've rested and then I still felt awful, but I at least could talk myself into a higher state. Like, I could look at things from a different point of view. For example, there have been times where I felt stuck, or I felt trapped in a job, or like in a situation or a relationship or whatever, and I have felt hopeless, like there's nothing I can do. And then after I took some time, stepped back away from the situation, rested, and then looked at it through a new set of eyes, I've said, you know what, I can try this, I can look at it from this angle, or these are the reasons why I'm grateful for this, and it puts me in a higher vibration, and it's a lot easier to kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel and attract that back to myself. So I know that I don't want to sound like crazy. I don't know. Maybe I do. I don't really care, honestly. But that's just the way the universe works. I 100% believe that. That's not to say that, like, there's not a God or anything spiritual out there, because I definitely believe in that too. But to each their own, whatever you believe. But from a scientific standpoint, I think that it 100% works that way. because science and whatever else you believe can coexist. Like, science and religion are not mutually exclusive. So that's just a little thing to say before I get off on a tangent about that. You can believe in magic in the universe, and this is one of those things that's not even magic. Like, I 100% believe this is just, like, law. So, moving on, your intuition or your gut constantly tells you what to do. It's just a matter of tuning in to listen to it. When things are hard, it's probably because you're not listening to that gut feeling that is telling you to do something. And a lot of times it's telling you to do the scary thing. Like, it's telling you to quit your job or get out of that situation or do this or whatever. And it can be terrifying. Like, I know. And it's hard to tell the difference when it's your gut telling you and it's your intuition telling you to do something that's going to lead you to the right path, and when it's your ego or your pride telling you to do something. Like, I know for me, a lot of times my ego gets in the way because I'll go to do something and then I'll have a gut feeling that I need to do something else, but I'll be like, no, what if so-and-so, like, sees me and I don't look cool, or, like, what if this happens, or whatever. So, a lot of times, your ego can lead you down a path where it's like, wow, this sounds so, like, just hearing myself talk, I know it sounds crazy. I just, like, am giving you the straight facts. I don't even know. Okay. I know a lot of times your ego wants you to do what society wants you to do. It's kind of like your pride. So it's like you don't want to do anything that is seen as weird or cringy or whatever. But no one really does something extraordinary if they're doing the ordinary. So keep that in mind. You have to do something that's cringy, never been done before, or new, and people are going to see that as weird. I'm obviously not saying to do anything illegal. This is not me condoning that at all. I just want to put that out there. I'm not telling you to do anything, like, bad, but if you want to do something like wear a new outfit that's not normal or considered, like, trendy or whatever, like, that's a very basic example. Don't let someone tell you not to. Like, if your gut's telling you to do it, or if you feel like you want to, sis, then go for it, because you never know. Someone could see you wearing that outfit and be like, oh my gosh, I love that, and then it could strike a conversation, and then you could end up, like, getting an invitation to coffee, and that's your new best friend, or you could get an invitation to a new networking thing that could take you to your next job. It could end up being your next relationship romantically. Like, you never know what's going to happen, so no matter how big or small, if your gut's telling you to do that, and you have honed in, like, I know this is my intuition and this isn't anything else, then you need to follow that, because it's never going to be wrong. It's just another thing that's like a magic of the universe. You can call it your gut, you can call it intuition, you can call it the Holy Spirit, you can call it whatever you want. But it's telling you, it's urging you to go down that path. So I made up a little rhyme. If you're not in flow, you gotta go. So it's time to switch things up. This doesn't necessarily mean to drop everything and leave the situation, but you gotta switch it up. So, for example, there's times with the podcast where I really hit a brick wall, and I'm like, okay, I feel like my episodes suck, I'm not really gaining anything, I've plateaued, like, I have burnout, whatever, like, just all the complaints that I can think of, because I'm dramatic. Then, instead of, like, saying, oh, I'm gonna quit the podcast, like, that would be the extreme, like, oh, you gotta go. I'll maybe say something like, let's switch things up. I'm going to read some Am I the Assholes? I am going to take some time off. I am going to interview someone. I'm going to reach out to these people. I'm going to get ideas through this. Like, switch things up and change your patterns, change your habits, change how you view things. And that is going to affect, obviously, your outcome. Like, what you do is going to affect the outcome. So switch things up if you feel like you're not in flow, and a lot of times it'll put you back into flow. But I know it's hard to think and come up with ideas when you are feeling like ick, so don't forget to rest. That's like the first thing I do, and that's what I'm going to tell you over and over again. Rest is so important. If you don't know what to do, just put everything down, take a moment to yourself, do what you got to do to get yourself back in that creative flow state. Because if the intention behind things is like a low energy, like, if I was posting podcast episodes like, oh my gosh, I'm so desperate to make this work, I need to become a full-time podcaster, like, I'm so sad with my life right now, I need this to become a full-time thing, and I'm putting that energy into it versus, man, I love these people, I love my community, I love my podcast, like, I just want this to be such a positive place, like, I enjoy what I'm doing. That energy, that high vibration energy, is going to attract a lot more high vibration things like success versus the low energy, which is just going to attract low vibration energy. So You see where I'm going with this? If you're not in flow, you gotta go. Don't live life stressed. The excitement should always outweigh the stress. So you're obviously going to be stressed to a certain extent. There are going to be exceptions where you're probably going to be stressed out because that's just life. But your excitement for what's going to happen after the stress or the cause for the stress should outweigh the stress. Like, I have some projects I'm working on right now and I'm so excited for them. Like, genuinely so excited. But I'm stressed because there's a lot of things I don't know how to do that I'm going to need to do research on. There's some scariness attached because it's a change and it's something I've never done before, and it's stressing me out. The excitement for the outcome and what could potentially happen is so much bigger than that stress, so it makes it worth it. And whenever I'm focusing on that stress, I just have to think to myself, we're not going to worry about that. We're going to focus on this exciting new feeling that we have and focus on the good. So your excitement should, for the most part, I'd say like at least 80% of the situation that you're in, it should outweigh the stress. If you don't know what to do, start with you. Can you see that I was on a rhyming kick when I was writing this? Everything is going to come from you. Like, if you are in a bad mindset, you're not going to perform at the level that you potentially could. Like, if you're in a bad mindset versus a good mindset, when you're in that good mindset, you're going to get a lot more done. You're going to be more efficient. It's going to be more successful. That's just how things work. So when you don't know what to do, look back towards yourself. I always go back towards my self-care, which means that I look at my environment. If I'm not in an environment that I want to be in versus, like, for example, if my house is clean, that's one of the first things I look at when I'm not feeling good. Like, I don't feel great. I feel like everything's hard. I start with my environment because I have to be in an environment that's uplifting, makes me feel good because it just shifts my vibes. I also look at what I'm eating because if you're eating something that isn't giving you the nutrients you need, you're not going to feel good. That can affect things. I look at my mental diet. Am I consuming things that are not good for me? Am I spending too much time listening to sad music? Thank you, TTPD, Taylor Swift. Ouch. You know, am I doing things, am I having more negative outcomes than positive in terms of my mental diet? Those are the things I'm looking for. I want my self-love to be at 110%. I want my habits to be at 110% because that's going to raise my own capacity to get things done. It's going to make me happier. And you need to go back to square one. If nothing else is working, go back to square one, which is your self-love, your self-concept, and then you're going to build from the ground up. Okay? So start with you. Ask yourself if it's burnout or unhappiness. So there's a difference between the two. If you feel like things are hard, usually it's one of two reasons. You're burnt out and you love what you're doing, you want to continue doing it, but you just feel like you can't. Like, you've got the brain fog. You just have no motivation. You don't know what the future holds. You feel like ick. That is more of like a burnout versus when you're unhappy and you don't want to be in the situation. You never want to be in this situation again. You just don't want anything to do with it. You may have brain fog. You feel upset every time you put yourself in that situation. Like, that's obviously more of a deep unhappiness versus burnout. So this is what we're going to do. If it's burnout, you need to rest. You need to rest, and then after that, you're going to ask yourself, am I sure this is the road I want to go down? How can I prevent burnout moving forward? You need to work on your self-concept. If it's unhappiness, you need to rest, but you also need to be working on a plan to pivot. If you are burnt out, you're going to work on how you're not going to burn out anymore, ways that you can implement more breaks, better health habits, ways to prevent that, versus the other one, which is pivot plan. What are you going to do? How are you going to change the situation? Where are you going to go? Are you going to remedy it? Are you going to talk to someone if the relationship is what's making you unhappy? Are you going to set boundaries? Are you going to jump ship? Like, you need a action plan. So usually it's either burnout or unhappiness, and there's two different ways to go about it depending on which it is. And you are just going to pick whichever one applies to you, and that's what I recommend doing. Rest and then pivot, or, make a plan to prevent it from happening again. There's always another option. This always helps me when I feel stuck. I know there's been times where I've been offered jobs and I've been like, okay, I don't want to stay where I'm at, but I don't want to take this job. But I feel like if I don't take it, like, I have to stay. And then I get very, like, in my head. I'm just using this as an example, by the way. I feel like these are just easily applicable for people in their 20s because we're still trying to get settled, figure things out. But there's also, relationships. Like, it's like, oh, I could break up or I can stay together. No, there's always another option. You can talk it out. When it comes to a job, you can get a different job outside of the one you were offered and the one you're staying in. Like, there is always another option. Sometimes you have to get really, really creative, and it's not a straightforward, easy option to point out. But there are other options. You just have to find them, and it may not be easy, but I promise you, if you're feeling stuck between two options and you're like, I don't really love either, usually there's another one. You just have to think outside the box. Progress is not linear. Sometimes you have to take a step back to go forward. This is so true. I know that I've worked really hard to get where I'm at, and I'm very proud of that, but I think that being proud of myself can get easily mixed up with me having an ego and being like prideful and not being willing to humble myself down to lower, quote unquote lower places because I feel like I've earned to be at a higher place. And it's like, yeah, that's true, but life isn't fair. Like, progress is not linear. You're not going to always be on an upward spiral. Sometimes you're going to have to dip down a little bit. You're going to have to take a step back, maybe go back to a position where you weren't as, like, esteemed. I don't know. Like, maybe you're going to have to go back to school. Maybe you're going to have to take a job that's not exactly, like, the step up you were hoping for. Like, maybe you're going to have to, I don't know. You get what I'm saying? Like, progress isn't linear. Sometimes you have to take a step back before you can take steps forward. And taking that step back is going to allow you the ability to make room to bring in those steps forward, or come up with those steps forward, or problem solve for those steps forward. So definitely remember that. Don't feel like you are going backwards in life or just like doing something wrong because you have to take a step back. It's not, a good example is having to move in with roommates, maybe having to move back home. Like, who knows with the economy in America right now? There's a lot of situations where you may have to take a step back that you didn't plan for or you're not exactly thrilled about, but know that it's allowing you the ability to take more steps forward and make more progress in the long run. Let go of your ego. It's getting in the way. I talked about this. You kind of have to put it to the side. Like, there are going to be situations where your pride and your ego are going to want to be like, no, I'm better than this, or no, I shouldn't do this, or no, that's embarrassing or cringy or whatever. And it's like, progress is on the other side of normal. Progress is on the other side of doing the thing that is scary or is cringy or is whatever. Like, don't let your ego talk you out of doing something you love because the step you have to take to get there is scary or cringy or embarrassing. Like, a huge example is social media, going live when you don't have like 1 million followers. Some people think that's so cringy, and I used to think it is too. But it's like, how are you going to interact with your community and get more followers if you don't like go live and do those things? Don't let the cringiness or like the fear of someone's seeing you post a video on YouTube like keep you from doing it. That's your ego, and it's just getting in the way. Clear out distractions or what no longer serves you and bring fresh energy in. I like to think of this in the form of cleaning out my closet, cleaning out old just storage in my house, but it also can be metaphorical. Like, if friendships are no longer serving you or the other person and they're just like not, they've run their course essentially, then that could be something. Maybe it's a job, maybe it's something else. Like, if something is no longer getting you to where you need to go or in your lifelong plan, or you just feel like it shouldn't be a thing. Like, I do certain things and I know that I'm not meant to be doing them. Like, this is not what I'm meant to do for the rest of my life, or like maybe this has served its purpose and I no longer feel like I'm in flow. Then you just have to make the hard decision and clear it out so that you can bring fresh new energy in. Change is scary, but it's necessary. Change is so scary. I'm terrified of change. That's why I stay in situations I shouldn't for so long, because I'm terrified of change. But it's necessary. Happiness, greatness, progress, success, whatever you want to call it, is on the other side of change. because if things are going down a path and there's no change, it stays the same forever, then it's not going to change. Like, nothing's going to change. It's not going to get better. It's just going to stay the exact same. So there has to be change. It's necessary. If it's not working, don't be afraid to shake things up. Sometimes you need to just shake things up. Like I mentioned earlier when I said, like, if it doesn't serve you, it's got to go. Like, you got to move some things around. This is basically the same thing. Like, don't be afraid to shake things up, big or small. Make the necessary changes. Good ideas will always come after rest. It's just the way it works. I don't make the rules. I know that I can't be creative if I'm burnt out or unhappy. I have to rest. And then suddenly all these creative ideas start coming to me, and then, like, I'm making positive changes, and I'm like, wow, all it took was rest, and all these great ideas came to me. Insane. Crazy how that works. Don't let society tell you no. If society tells you not to wear something, not to have a certain business, not to skip out on getting a college degree, you have to get your master's, you cannot date this person, you have to date this person, you have to move here, you shouldn't move here, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that. Like, society standards are exhausting, and if you have something that you feel like is your calling and you're passionate about it, don't let society tell you no. Trust me, it has a million other reasons to tell you no. There's always going to be something that you want to do that society doesn't go along with, whether it's super small or big. It's just the way things are, so just screw it. Like, who cares? Literally, who cares? If you do what everybody else does, then you're going to be the same person that everybody else is, and not that they don't have amazing lives, but if what you are feeling called to do, like, you are super driven, you're super ambitious, you want to do amazing things, then you have to get out of the crowd and do your own thing. So, just gotta vibe with it and not listen to society. Take advice with a grain of salt. Even the people who are closest to you are gonna have bias. A good example of this is I absolutely adore my mom. We have a great relationship. I tell her everything. But I know that she's gonna have bias. She's always gonna tell me to do the safest option. Like, I have learned this. I could tell her so many different things. I could tell her, hey, I'm going to make $1 million doing XYZ, but it is a little risky, or I'm going to make $50,000 a year doing this, but it's super stable. And my mom would be like, $50,000, Grace. Stable. Awesome. Safe. No worries. And I'm like, Mom, what? So that's an example of take everybody's advice with a grain of salt. Just because someone gives you advice doesn't mean you have to follow it. And I am so grateful that I have a relationship with my mom where I can say to her, like, I love you. I so respect your opinion. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me. But I know you're doing this from a place of love. I know you're going to give me the safest option because you love me. But I feel like at this time I want to do the not so safe thing. And again, this is all just an example. Just as my mom and I have had so many conversations in my 20s that have gone along those lines, whether it's graduate school or college or work or boyfriends or whatever it is, like, my mom and I have had all the conversations, and she always, without fail, picks the safest option, like the most stable, the safest, in my opinion, the most boring, and it's fine. Like, I know she's going to do that. I know there's an amount of bias. I take it with a grain of salt. I don't take it personally. Like, I know she wants me to be happy, and in her eyes, safe equals happy. So even the people you love most in your life probably have a certain amount of bias when they give you advice. At the end of the day, you're going to have to make the decision for yourself. Weigh out what they tell you. Try to understand where they're coming from, because it may not be like my mom doesn't have any ill intent if she tells me to do the safest option, but I do know where she's coming from, where she wants me to be safe, and I understand that. So, my grandma's very similar. Like, you probably have people in your life where like, oh, they just want me to be safe, versus like, oh, this person, maybe I shouldn't ask them advice because they don't like me that much, or like, whatever it is. There's lots of reasons, but understand there's definitely going to be bias to a certain extent when you ask people for advice, even if it's just their opinion and their own personal beliefs that are making that bias. Work on self-confidence. So when you have self-confidence, you just have the ability to make better decisions for yourself, as well as you have a better head on your shoulders. In my opinion, the perfect formula for self-confidence is self-love plus self-discipline equals self-confidence. So you need self-love because you need to love yourself. Your esteem needs to be good. You need to be taking care of yourself. You need to think that you're a bad bitch. But you also need to have self-discipline, because if you don't, then you're not going to get anything done. Like, you're literally, for example, I've had terrible self-discipline for a long time. I'm working on it now. But if I'm like, nah, I don't want to eat healthy, I'm going to go get a milkshake every single day for a week, I'm going to feel like, terrible. I'm going to probably think that I look bigger than I am. Like, I'm going to be like, wow, I'm so bloated. Like, I don't really love myself right now. Like, whereas if I had self-discipline, that wouldn't have happened. Also, when you tell yourself to do something, like you say, no, I have to not have milkshakes every day for a week, and then I can have one on Saturday when I go out with my friends. Say that's something you tell yourself. And then you follow through with that. You make it all the way to the weekend, and then you get your milkshake with your friends. You're building confidence within yourself because you're like, wow, I have the capability to stick to this. And it could be something much bigger. It could be every night I'm going to read a book on how to start a business, and then I'm going to write my business plan, and I'm going to do all of this by this date, and then you get that done, and your self-confidence has skyrocketed because you did something so hard and time-consuming. Or it could be something small, like, I'm going to do a face mask tonight, and then you do the face mask. Like, self-discipline and self-love are the key to self-confidence. You can't have one without the other. If you have self-discipline but no self-love, you're not going to be confident in yourself because you're not going to love yourself. If you have self-love and no self-discipline, you're not going to be confident in yourself because you don't feel like you have the ability to follow through, and you're not confident that you'll be able to do anything. So, self-love plus self-discipline. So, self-love plus self-discipline equal self-confidence. And that is all the notes I have for today. I hope that you guys got something out of this. At times I felt like I was rambling. I don't know if it made sense. It made sense in my head, but I hope it made sense to you guys as well. Let me know your favorite thing that you got out of this episode. If you're able to comment below, if you're able to comment on the episode at all, like I know some platforms let you, some don't. But if not, I will see you guys in my next podcast episode. Don't forget to like, maybe leave a rating and review. I want to hear from you, know what you love, what you don't love. Don't forget to follow on whatever platform you're currently listening or watching on. I upload every single Sunday and Wednesday, and I would love for you to join the community. Alright guys, I'll see you guys later. Bye!